Chapter 1148. In the hallucinatory immortal city, Yu Qianqiu, who was disguised as Niu Yud, casually walked to Nongzhu's stall. He picked up a horse sculpture and clicked his tongue. Oh my God! There was actually such a marvelous sculpture in this world. He wondered which extraordinary person had created it. Boss! How many spirit stones are you selling it for? He smiled wretchedly. Nongzhu looked at him as if he was a dead man. She sat there motionlessly and said, "It is rare to see a man like you. Why don't you tell me what's so good about the things in my stall? If you really know what's good about them, I will give them to you for free." His words seemed to be saying, praise me as much as you can. I want to see what you can boast about." Yu Qianqiu could see that this old handsome man had a problem with him. Forget it, he would not argue with him now. He would ask Jade Flower Fairy to deal with him when he returned. Just when he was about to say something to comfort him, there was a sudden commotion in the square. Looking back, he found that many disciples of the Heartless Palace had come to the square and were talking passionately. What's going on? Yu Qianqiu held the horse sculpture in his arms and got back to business. However, he was transmitting his voice secretly. Nongzhu also understood that it was not the time to be angry. She explained angrily, after the immortal underworld and the underworld established the immortal underworld demon-slaying alliance, the Heartless Palace established the rogue cultivators alliance from all over the immortal world. The gimmick was that they took out a quota of 1,000 true disciples of the Heartless Palace and prepared to reward them to the rogue cultivators who made great contributions to the immortal underworld demon-slaying alliance. It was said that the rogue cultivators who made great contributions could join the Heartless Palace and practice the sword-drawing movement of the Heartless Palace. Once this gimmick was taken out, the rogue cultivators in the immortal world rushed to join. I heard that 2 to 3 million people have been gathered to compete for the 1,000 quota. The Rogue Cultivators Alliance. Yu Qianqiu was startled. He was quite familiar with this name. He had once been the leader of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance in the cultivation world, so he didn't find it strange that these rogue cultivators would flock to him like a flock of ducks. He nodded slightly and said, "Independent cultivators do not have a good life. Being able to join the Heartless Palace and obtain the true legacy of the Heartless Palace's sword-drawing technique is indeed a chance to change one's fate. If it were me, I would take the gamble. Anyway, no one knows you now. You can give it a try," Nongzhu said sarcastically. Yu Qianqiu caressed the horse sculpture in his arms and chuckled, "Forget it. It's good that it's cheaper." Yu Qianqiu nodded and smiled. The red-robed disciple immediately stretched out his hand and invited, "Sir, please follow me." The two of them flew out of the crowd. Not long later, they landed at the entrance of the mythical Fire Palace's branch. Actually, Yu Qianqiu was very familiar with this place. He had been here many times. However, in the past, he would usually directly enter the back hall to look for Elder Hulianqing. However, this red-robed disciple led him to a small room at the side and invited him to sit down and have some tea. After he left and returned, he respectfully brought an old man with him. The old man clearly didn't think that this little disciple could attract any big customers. He walked in with his hands behind his back. When he realized that he couldn't see through Yu Qianqiu's cultivation, his expression became more serious. He cupped his hands and sat opposite of Yu Qianqiu. He asked, "I'm Li Zhen. How should I address you?" "Niu Yud." Yu Qianqiu held the teacup and replied. Li Zhen frowned and thought about it. He realized that he had never heard of this person before. However, he didn't mind it. He laughed and said, "I heard from the disciple that you want to buy all kinds of low-tier immortal equipment in bulk. I wonder what kind of low-tier immortal equipment you want and how many do you want?" Yu Qianqiu sat there and drank a mouthful of tea. He then smiled faintly and said, "I want flying swords. I don't want all low-tier ones. I want high-tier ones too." However, I heard from him that it would be cheaper to buy them in bulk. Don't cheat me. He pointed at the little disciple who was standing with his hands behind his back. There's naturally a discount if you buy in bulk. He's right. Li Zhen said with a face full of smiles. Can you give me a specific number? Yu Qianzhou put down the teacup and said solemnly, I want as much as you have. You must be joking. Li Zhen laughed. He used his laughter to re-evaluate Yu Qianzhou. He was wondering if Yu Qianzhou really had the financial resources to buy as much as he had. One had to know that mythical fire palace had been in the immortal realm for so many years. There were countless lodier flying swords that their disciples had refined. Just this branch alone had a backlog of millions of them. If they could really sell them all, it would really be a big business. However, who would want so much trash if they had the financial resources? Do I look like I'm joking? Yu Qianzhou asked coldly. Haha. Of course it's better if it's true. Li Zhen twirled his white beard as he chuckled. There are 9 grades of immortal artifacts. Grade 1 is 1 divine great spirit stone, grade 2 is 100, grade 3 is 10,000, grade 4 is 1 million, and grade 5 is 100 million. These are the market prices. If Honored Sir wants to buy in bulk, the price can be negotiated. As for grade 6 and above, any one of them would easily cost tens of billions of divine grade spirit stones. Most of them are custom-made, and the price is not something I can decide. Our branch does have a few in stock. If Honored Sire is really sincere in purchasing in large quantities, I can introduce you to the elder in charge of the branch. The price was the market price. Yu Qianzhou's eyes rolled as he pondered, then he asked again, report me the stock, I'll buy according to the amount of money I have. He's for real this time. Li Zhen's spirit rose, straightening his back as he said, there are about 2 million grade 1 immortal artifacts in the branch, 400,000 grade 2 immortal artifacts, 200,000 grade 3 immortal artifacts, close to 10,000 grade 4 immortal artifacts, 7 to 800 grade 5 immortal artifacts, and 11 grade 6 immortal artifacts. May I know which grade Honored Sir is looking for, and how many do you need? Yu Qianzhou nodded thoughtfully at Li Zhen's words. Estimating, just 11 grade 6 immortal artifacts would cost more than 100 billion divine grade spirit stones, and buying all the grades would cost at least 200 billion divine grade spirit stones. The total amount of spirit stones he had now was less than 80 billion, and he still needed to keep some spirit stones in reserve, yet he wanted to buy all the high-grade immortal artifacts. Truly, even the cleverest housewife couldn't cook a meal without rice. After pondering for a while, Yu Qianzhou's mouth twitched. I only want 1 million grade 1 immortal artifacts, give me as many flying swords as possible, as for the rest, I want all the grade 2, 3, 4, 5, and grade 6 immortal artifacts. The two people in front of him exchanged a glance. Li Zhen coughed lightly, he didn't expect it to be such a large sum. His previous estimate was 100,000, so he forced a smile. Honored Sir is aware that just these items alone would cost more than 200 billion divine grade spirit stones. Of course, I'm not doubting Honored Sir's wealth, but may I ask, what are you planning to do with such a large sum? Otherwise, you should know that if a large amount of things were to flow to the netherworld, it would be the same as cutting off other sects' source of income, and it would be hard for my mythical fire palace to explain to the other sections. He really couldn't figure out who else in the immortal world would want so many immortal artifacts at once. All the sects had an agreement, the mythical fire palace couldn't monopolize the netherworld's business just because of their reputation in artifact forging. This amount was a little too large. Most importantly, he was worried about this Niu Yud's wealth. You don't need to care about this, forget it. Those 2 million plus grade 1 immortal artifacts, I want all of them. Yu Qianzhou thought that it was better to be prepared. Since he was going to do something immoral, he couldn't care less about those 1 million plus grade 1 immortal artifacts. Thus, he decisively made his decision. His hand reached into his clothes and pulled out a bunch of storage bracelets. The two people in front of him were stunned. They couldn't imagine how Huang Xiaolong had so many storage bracelets on him. Why didn't they notice it earlier? Paw! Yu Qianqiu casually pulled out a storage bracelet, slapping it on the table, his voice resonant. Enough nonsense, I'm here to buy things, you're here to sell things. This is 10 billion divine grade spirit stones as a deposit, to show my sincerity. If you really want to do this business, take the deposit, and the goods will be delivered at the same time. Don't waste my time with useless words. If you can't do it, let someone in charge make the final decision. Chapter 1149. Without even seeing the goods, Huang Xiaolong directly took out 10 billion divine grade spirit stones as a deposit. What a generous and wealthy buyer. The two people on the other side were stunned. They had seen rich and overbearing people, but they had never seen someone who didn't take money seriously. Li Zhen signaled the red-clothed disciple with his eyes, and the latter respectfully walked up to Yu Qianqiu, taking the storage bracelet from him. Li Zhen scanned the storage bracelet with his divine sense and discovered that it was filled to the brim with divine-grade spirit stones. There were indeed 10 billion of them. Then, he looked up at the huge storage bracelets in Yu Qianqiu's hands. If there were 10 billion in each storage bracelet, then he should have at least 1 trillion in his hands. My goodness, I've really met a big buyer. Li Zhen's eyes lit up as he held the storage bracelet in his hand. He stood up and bowed to Yu Qianqiu. Since you're so sincere, although I can't make the decision on my own, I'll have to report to the town elder and try my best to close the deal. Please wait for a moment, I'll be back soon. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand disapprovingly, indicating for him to leave quickly and return quickly. Li Zhen raised his hand again to ask him to wait for a moment, then left quickly. In the back hall, Wu Yinqing took the storage bangle from Li Zhen and checked it. After confirming the number, he returned it and frowned slightly. You purchased such a large number of celestial artifacts in one go. You didn't ask him about the purpose of the purchase. I did, but he refused to tell me. Li Zhen thought about it and said, I suspect that he's buying for the underworld, so I don't dare to agree. Netherworld. Indeed, only the netherworld can use up such a large number of low-grade immortal artifacts at once. If it was in the past, the mythical fire palace wouldn't have dared to sell so many weapons to the netherworld at one go. But ever since Wang Qing and his son gained power, for some unknown reason, the sect actually hinted to him to loosen the restrictions on sales to the netherworld. He was also planning for this matter, but he didn't expect that a large buyer would come knocking on his door. After some thought, Wu Yinqing said, sell it to him. Then, he added, since he's a big buyer, invite him to my place. Then, you go and check out the things he wants and bring them over. Try to round it up as much as possible and leave the odd bits to maintain the popularity of the daily business. Yes. But elder. Li Zhen was a little hesitant. If we do this, it'll be the equivalent of emptying the branch. The Heartless Palace has already reserved 3 million low-grade immortal artifacts for the newly formed itinerant Cultivator Alliance. If we give them all at once, what if the Heartless Palace comes to collect the goods and we can't hand them over? Wu Yinqing waved his hand disapprovingly. That's not a problem. I'll immediately contact the sect and get them to send those low-grade immortal artifacts over as soon as possible. It'll be just nice to get rid of most of the useless things in the sect. This is a good thing. If the Heartless Palace comes to collect the goods, I'll explain. Just do as I say. Li Zhen naturally accepted the order and soon brought Yu Qianqiu over. Wu Yinqing looked at him and found that he couldn't see through his cultivation, so he invited him to sit down and have some tea. Then, he asked him some questions. Yu Qianqiu sat there calmly and pretended not to know him. Seeing that he couldn't get anything out of him, Wu Yinqing said some insignificant things to kill time. It didn't take long for Li Zhen to check the number of the items. Li Zhen only needed to confirm the number of the items before he took out 6 storage bracelets and placed them on the tea table in front of Yu Qianqiu. He explained, 2 million pieces of first-grade celestial artifacts, 400,000 pieces of second-grade celestial artifacts, 200,000 pieces of third-grade celestial artifacts, 10,000 pieces of fourth-grade celestial artifacts, 800 pieces of fifth-grade celestial artifacts, and 11 pieces of sixth-grade celestial artifacts. Yu Qianqiu did not check them carefully. He just took each of the 6 storage bracelets and quickly checked the amount inside. Then he took them all in his hand and asked, "No need to count. I trust the reputation of the mythical fire palace. How many spirit stones do you need in total?" It was rare to see such a straightforward customer. Li Zhen smiled respectfully at Huang Xiaolong. According to the market price, the total value is 202,042 million divine great spirit stones, not a piece more, not a piece less. Bang! Yu Qianqiu slammed the table, causing the teacups on the table to shatter into pieces. His eyes widened in anger as he snapped, "This can't be right. Why is it according to the market price again? Didn't you say that there would be a discount? Is this how your mythical fire palace conducts business?" Such a huge commotion startled several disciples who rushed in from outside. Huo Lianqing and Li Zhen were stunned for a moment, thinking that they had run into some troublemaker. But when they heard the reason for Huang Xiaolong's anger, they shook their heads with a wry smile. This person might be straightforward, but his temper was truly fiery. He simply couldn't tolerate a grain of sand in his eyes. Wasn't it obvious that he hadn't finished his words? Huo Lianqing waved his hand at the disciples who rushed in. "It's none of your business, just a small misunderstanding. All of you, leave." After the disciples left, Huo Lianqing didn't seem to mind that they had broken his things. He smiled amiably at Yu Qianqiu. "Brother Niu has misunderstood. Since we said that there will be a discount, we can sit down and discuss the price." Then he turned to Li Zhen and said, "Serve Brother Niu some tea, let Brother Niu calm down." A short while later, the broken things were cleaned up, and a new cup of tea was placed on the table. Yu Qianqiu sat down resentfully, placing the 6 storage bracelets back on the table. He harumphed coldly, "It seems like I've misunderstood. I wonder how much discount Elder Hua is prepared to give me." Huo Lianqing revealed a warm smile, as if the customer was God. "How about this? We'll give Brother Niu 20 billion divine great spirit stones. Forget about the odd bits, just take it that the 2 million grade 1 immortal artifacts and 400,000 grade 2 immortal artifacts are free gifts. What does Brother Niu think? Are you joking? Over 200 billion divine great spirit stones and you're only offering a discount of 42 million divine great spirit stones." Yu Qianqiu jumped to his feet with a furious expression, as if he was fooled. His hand reached out to Li Zhen. "This is intolerable. Return 10 billion divine great spirit stones to me. I don't want to buy any more." Li Zhen's expression stiffened, noticing that the other side wasn't as generous as he had imagined. Huo Lianqing smiled awkwardly. "Brother Niu, don't be in such a hurry, name a suitable price." Yu Qianqiu retracted his hand hearing Huo Lianqing's words. He crossed his fingers and pondered for a while, then extended 2 fingers toward Huo Lianqing and Huo Lianqing. "Fixed price, 200 billion divine great spirit stones." The moment Huang Xiaolong said that, Huo Lianqing's smile froze. Cutting out 2 billion divine great spirit stones in one go, what was the difference between this and robbery? Huo Lianqing's face sank. "Brother Niu, you're not sincere." "Ah." Huo Lianqing also extended 2 fingers, emphasizing each word clearly. 200 million, I'll give Brother Niu another 200 million divine great spirit stones. This is the limit of what I can decide, a total of 201.8 billion. Although he had already made a big concession, little did he know that even if he agreed to the other side's offer of 200 billion divine great spirit stones, Yu Qianqiu wouldn't buy it. Yu Qianqiu would think twice before lowering the price by another 2 billion, forcing the other side to disagree. Yu Qianzhou sneered, then extended his hand toward Li Zhen. Return the 10 billion divine-grade spirit stones to me. Li Zhen looked weakly at Huo Lianqing, but Huo Lianqing's face darkened. Brother Niu, you'd better think it through. Other than my mythical fire palace, you won't be able to find another place in the 3 worlds with such a favorable price. If Brother Niu is really sincere, I'll treat it as a friend and give you another 100 million discount. What does Brother Niu think? Didn't you just say that a discount of 200 million is the limit of what you can decide? Now you're going back on your words and offering another 100 million? Yu Qianzhou chuckled coldly. Little do you know that I'm a person who values character the most when doing business. If it's something I like, even if it's another 10 billion, I'm still willing. Huo Lianqing was depressed. Wasn't this how business was conducted? Are you saying that I'm not pleasing to the eye? Before Huo Lianqing could say anything, Yu Qianzhou flicked his sleeves and strode out, saying as he walked, it's an insult to my character to continue talking nonsense with you. In any case, your hands are already dirty after the 10 billion, it's beneath me to ask for it back. You can keep it and spend it slowly. Disdain was written all over his face as he strode away. Listening to Huang Xiaolong's words, it sounded like he was putting himself on a pedestal, giving others the impression that he was a misophobe. Huo Lianqing and Li Zhen exchanged a glance. This was the first time they met such a strange person. Li Zhen blanked for a moment. Elder. Do you want this disciple to chase him back and have a talk? Do you think you can come to an agreement with this kind of person? Huo Lianqing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I've seen all kinds of people in my life, but not this kind of person. He really has too much money and nowhere to spend it. But 10 billion divine-grade spirit stones is not a small amount, so leave it for now. If one day he regrets it and comes back to ask for it, we still have to return it to him. After all, no amount of money can exchange for our mythical fire palace's golden reputation. This disciple understands. Li Zhen saluted respectfully, then put away the 6 storage bracelets on the table, turned around and left. However, a short while later, Li Zhen ran back in a flustered manner, his voice anxious. Not good. Not good. Elder, we've been tricked. Huo Lianqing frowned. How many times have I told you to stay calm? What happened? Tell me slowly, what are you panicking for? Li Zhen quickly and anxiously recounted the matter. It turned out that when he brought the items into the storage, according to the rules, the disciples who entered the storage room had to check the items again, otherwise, if something was missing, the disciples who entered the storage room wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. In the end, other than 1 storage bracelet with 10 billion divine-grade spirit stones inside, the other 6 were empty. Li Zhen was not a fool. A moment's thought told him that someone had swapped the storage bracelets. Hearing this, Huo Lianqing was dumbstruck. Just now, when the items were placed back on the table, he had been keeping a close watch on them. There shouldn't have been a chance to swap them out. Could it be that when the other party smashed the table, you stupid pig? Who did you bring? If more than 200 billion worth of treasures are gone just like that, you and I can forget about having a good life. Hurry up and send people out to search. Huo Lianqing bellowed, taking the lead and dashed out in a hurry. Chapter 1150. The entire Lifefire Palace's branch instantly moved out in full force, swiftly searching the entire illusionary immortal city. They even searched the area within 100 miles of the illusionary immortal city. However, how could they still find Niu Yud's shadow? Even a fool would know that after scamming someone, they had to flee as fast as they could. In addition, Niu Yud was a swindler who dared to come to the Lifefire Palace to commit fraud. They didn't find him, but the commotion caused the people of the city to go around trying to find out what exactly happened. The Lifefire Palace actually mobilized so many people. After that, he saw many Lifefire Palace's disciples stopping people in the central plaza, interrogating them one by one. Their questions were all about whether they had seen a person named Niu Yud who looked like that before. When the investigation reached Nongju's stall, Nongju was speechless. Others might not know Niu Yud, but it would be strange if he said he didn't. However, he also didn't know what Yu Qianqiu had done. But based on his understanding of Yu Qianqiu, once there was a commotion involving that brat, he would definitely be up to no good. Hence, he shook his head and said he didn't know him. It was fine if he didn't know him, he couldn't help but ask, what happened? The Liefire Palace's disciple coldly snorted, don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Hence, Nongju could only shut his mouth. However, there was no impermeable wall in the world. The pitiful Huo Lianqing discovered that his losses were too great. He basically had no way to report to his sect. He could only hurriedly seek help from the other major sects to capture Niu Yud. In truth, he also suspected that Niu Yud was using a fake name. Who would use a real name to commit fraud? For a period of time, the various sects more or less gave face to Huo Lianqing, sending many people to search everywhere. They even sent orders back to their sects to inform their people to take note of this. After all, everyone wanted to know who this Niu Yud was exactly. He actually dared to deceive the Liefire Palace. Also, under the situation where there was no harm, if they captured Niu Yud, it would be equivalent to the Liefire Palace owing them a favor. In this case, the more people there were, the more mouths there would be. What happened naturally couldn't be concealed. When everyone knew that it was someone who cheated the Liefire Palace of over 200 billion worth of treasures, the entire hallucinatory immortal city was in an uproar. Some scolded that Niu Yud for being immoral, some praised that Niu Yud for having guts. Therefore, many people jokingly said that this swindler's name was too perfect. Why not call him Wicked Niu or Gutsy Niu? Wouldn't calling Niu Yud be smacking the face of the Liefire Palace? Hearing this news, Nongju was stunned for a long time. The muscles on her face couldn't stop twitching. She didn't expect that the guy would do such a big thing in the blink of an eye. It seemed that there was really nothing in this world that he didn't dare to do. Moreover, he was 100% sure that it was Yu Qianqiu who did it, because Yu Qianqiu had said before he left that he wanted to change the weapons of a large group of his subordinates. But didn't he say he was going shopping? How did it become a scam? Nongju couldn't understand how Yu Qianqiu managed to scam them. Could it be that the people of the Liefire Palace were all fools? How could they scam an item worth over 200 billion just like that? Damn it! It must be Huo Lianqing scolding me. I've already given you 10 billion. Your Liefire Palace is rich and powerful. Would it kill me to earn a little more? In the conference room of the Divine Ruin Realm, Yu Qianqiu rubbed his itchy nose and scolded. However, seeing the 6 storage bracelets on the conference table, he immediately became spirited again. Previously, he was still thinking about how to solve the problem of weapons for millions of people. He went to the fantasy immortal city with the goal of buying as many as he could. Who would have thought that he would solve the problem at once so quickly? Moreover, there was still enough left. It was enough for one person to give 2 bracelets. Just thinking about it made him admire himself. However, he felt a little emotional. He thought that he didn't need to do such things anymore at this point. He didn't expect that some things could be solved with the methods of the Jianghu. However, he really couldn't use it in the future. At the very least, he had to use it sparingly. If he used it too much, he would be embarrassed. Having solved another big problem, he instantly felt a lot more relaxed. He sat on the chair and crossed his legs on the table. He started to remove Niu Yud's mask. When he put away the mask, he couldn't help but open it and sigh. Exchanging you for about 200 billion is worth it. You probably won't be able to show your face in the future. He put away the mask with a sigh. He wasn't worried that someone would reveal his identity as Niu Yud. After all, not many people in the immortal and netherworld knew about it. Even if he was exposed, he could completely refuse to admit it without any solid evidence. At this moment, Zhang Ping walked in quickly and bowed. Master, what's the matter? Yu Qianqiu put down his crossed legs and pointed to the 6 storage bracelets on the table. These storage bracelets have 11 grade, 6 immortal artifacts, 800 grade, 5 immortal artifacts, 10,000 grade, 4 immortal artifacts, 200,000 grade, 3 immortal artifacts, 400,000 grade, 2 immortal artifacts, and 2 million grade, 1 immortal artifacts. Take them and decide whether to give them to them. So many. Zhang Peng was shocked. He picked up the 6 storage bracelets and examined them. He couldn't help but gasp. He couldn't imagine where his master had gotten so many celestial artifacts. The number was too huge. He had heard from the commanders of the various armies about the prices of celestial artifacts of various grades in the celestial world. How many spirit stones would it cost to buy these things? Zhang Peng looked at his master with admiration. At least, he didn't have the ability to get so many immortal artifacts in one go. Yu Qianqiu, who was changing his clothes, naturally wouldn't tell his disciple that he had cheated them. After changing his clothes, he disappeared. In the valley outside the illusionary immortal city, Yu Qianqiu had just flown into the air when he saw 3 mythical fire palace disciples surrounding him and sizing him up. Yu Qianqiu thought that the matter had probably been exposed. On the surface, he snorted coldly. So it's mythical fire palace disciples. What do you want? He's the World Commerce Association sect leader, Yu Qianqiu. One of them whispered to his left and right. Obviously, he had seen Yu Qianqiu before. The 3 of them clasped their hands and bowed. We're pursuing the fugitive. Sorry to disturb sect leader Yu. Then, they quickly flew away. Yu Qianqiu flicked his sleeves and continued flying towards the illusionary immortal city. Now that the grudge between him and Heartless Palace had been resolved, he could finally show his face openly. After he entered the illusionary immortal city, it immediately caused a commotion. The news of Yu Qianqiu's return spread rapidly. As for Yu Qianqiu himself, he felt as if he, Hu Han San, had returned to his previous life. He swaggered through the market, constantly looking around and asking questions at the various stalls. He pretended to unknowingly walk to the front of Nongzhu's stall to check out the items on display. Nongzhu was at a loss for words watching Huang Xiaolong fiddling with the sculptures. In the end, she couldn't help but send a voice transmission to Huang Xiaolong, "Brat, you're too black-hearted. You swindled over 200 billion immortal artifacts from the Lifefire Palace. How do you want Huo Lianqing and the rest to establish themselves in the Lifefire Palace in the future? Don't listen to those rumors. I spent 10 billion divine grade spirit stones to buy those immortal artifacts. How did it turn into swindling in your mouth? This sect leader is rich, why would I need to swindle others?" Yu Qianqiu retorted disdainfully. Fine. You have guts. 10 billion divine grade spirit stones can buy over 200 billion immortal artifacts. If there's a chance, I'd like to see how you do it. Nongzhu couldn't be bothered to argue with Huang Xiaolong anymore. She changed the topic. You've just done something bad, why didn't you go and lay low for a while? What are you doing here? Yu Qianqiu stared at the mountain peak in the distance. A light flickered in his eyes as he said, I'm considering if I should rebuild the World Commerce Hole. That way, I won't need to hide when I go out to gather information. It's just like you and me talking here, it's so inconvenient. Sooner or later, people will start to suspect you. Just as he finished speaking, bright lights shot out from the various sects, flying up to the sky. Cries of fear and panic came from afar, spreading like the tide. Not good. Jin Taihe and Bai Qi used a scheme to stop Wang Qing and Wu Feng from entering the netherworld. Jin Taihe is delaying Wang Qing and Wu Feng in the netherworld, while Bai Qi has set up a grand formation at the entrance to the immortal netherworld. Bai Qi is killing his way to the devil world, no one can stop him. It's over. The devil world's passage is about to be opened by Bai Qi, everyone, quickly run. All sorts of rumors and slanders started to spread everywhere. The entire illusory immortal city was in a mess. Panicked merchants and peddlers quickly packed their things and flew away. Yu Qianzhou and Nongzhu glanced at each other, then looked around with an unusually solemn look. That's mine. Ah! There were already people taking advantage of the situation. Screams could be heard from time to time. They took advantage of the chaos to kill people, steal their things and run. Quickly pack your things and find a place to hide. The peddler beside Nongzhu had gotten to know Nongzhu over the past few days and kindly reminded her. He had already packed his things and flew into the sky. Nongzhu looked at Yu Qianzhou. She didn't need to transmit her voice and said directly, "It looks like you have to put aside the matter of rebuilding the World Commerce Hall. What do you plan to do now?" Yu Qianzhou coldly looked around at the chaos and said slowly in a low voice, "I didn't expect Wang Qing and his son to not be able to stop Jin Tai and Bai Qi. What will come will come. I have no other choice now. I can only take it one step at a time." In just a short while, the entire hallucinatory immortal city was completely empty. The bustling city of the past had become windy in the blink of an eye. Only the two of them stood in the square with cold expressions. Once the demonic path returned to the three realms, who knew where the peddlers and peddlers could hide? At the entrance of the demon realm seal in the immortal realm, three figures appeared in the enlarged obsidian light mirror. The imposing demon monarch Three Knights sat on the blood jade throne, his scarlet cloak hanging halfway down his left leg. His tiger-like eyes shone with a demonic red light. To the left of the blood jade throne was Yan Zhuixing in black. To the right was Eunuch Li in white. The three of them stared coldly at Bai Qi. Before Bai Qi could greet him, Demon King Three Knights shouted, "Bai Qi! How dare you make fun of me? Demon King, please calm down." In fear and trepidation, Bai Qi explained the reason why he and Jin Tai had delayed opening the passageway to the demon realm, and reported, "I am already at the entrance of the passageway between the immortal realm and the demon realm, and can open the passageway to the demon realm at any time. Demon Monarch, please be prepared, otherwise, I'm afraid that something unexpected will happen." Hearing this, Demon King Three Knights knew that the devil world was about to open. He couldn't help but become excited. He closed his eyes and slowly asked, "Who is waiting at the entrance to the immortal world?" Eunuch Li immediately faced him and bowed slightly. "It's the 100,000 demonic path army led by the demon king Qing Tian." Chapter 1151. Bai Qi, how long do you need to unseal the demon world? Demon King Three Knights' eyes slowly opened, revealing a blood-red glow. "An hour is enough for this subordinate, but this subordinate is worried that Wang Qing and his son will arrive at any moment. If the demon world army doesn't come out in time, this subordinate is afraid that something will happen." Seeing that the demon world was about to open and the demonic path was about to return to the three realms, Bai Qi's attitude became even more respectful. At the same time, he was hesitating. The reason why he didn't open the passage to the demon world first was because he wanted to see Demon King Three Knights' attitude before making a final decision. After all, this was not a small matter. He couldn't afford to lose. Demon King Three Knights seemed to guess what he was thinking and said slowly and heavily, "After this matter is successful, this sovereign will keep his promise. The underworld will still be controlled by you, Bai Qi, on behalf of the demonic path. But if you dare to lie to me, there are some things that I might as well tell you. Even if you don't open the passage to the demon world, this sovereign's return to the three realms is only a matter of time, so do as you see fit." Hearing this, Bai Qi was shocked. He knew that although Demon King Three Knight was a demonic cultivator, he was a supreme demonic cultivator who thought highly of himself. There was no need for him to lie to him. He must have already found a way to open the passage to the demon world, but the time was not right yet. He said respectfully, "This subordinate doesn't dare." Demon King 3 Knight looked straight at Bai Qi and suddenly shouted in a loud voice, "Quickly open the passage to the demon world and welcome the demonic path's army back to the three realms." Yes. Bai Qi accepted the order fearfully and raised his hand to put away the obsidian light mirror floating in front of him. The image in front of him disappeared. Demon King 3 Knight suddenly stood up and looked outside the tall palace gate. His decisive voice resounded through the entire mountain peak. "Send my order to Qing Tian, the passage between the immortal world and demon world is about to open. Tell her to lead the army and prepare to set off at any time. Tell her that after entering the immortal world, everything else has nothing to do with her. Tell her to guard the passage to the demon world at all costs and welcome the demonic path's army. If she dares to ruin my plans, have her head come to see me. Send my order to Li Tian, Ho Tu, Xiang Rong, Ba Hu, Shanduan, Shuang, Han Ba, Meng Yan, Tun Hai, Mo Luo, Yao Erlang, and the other demon kings to lead their armies to the passage to the immortal world. Erlang will lead the army to assist Qing Tian after entering the immortal world and demon world. Erlang will lead the army and help to guard the passage. Everyone else, Don, Tian and Tian will need to stay to wait. Qi and will to enter the passage. Demon will. And Qing. If anyone dares to ruin my plans, kill. Send my order to Qing Qiu, Di Lang, Rushing Fury, Ying Long, Yu Guang, Ying Zhao, Qi Mei, Shen Hui, Tian Ho, Snake Xiu, Tsang Lei, Ba Yin, and the other demon kings to gather at the passage between the immortal world and the nether world. Once the passage opens, immediately enter the nether world to meet up with the receiving army. Leave Hanba and Tsang Lei to guard the passage, then split into two groups. One group will sweep the enemies in the nether world, and the other in the immortal world. If anyone dares to disobey my orders, kill them, no matter who they are. Send my order to the other demon kings to lead their armies to guard the demon world and wait for further orders. If anyone dares to cause trouble, kill them without mercy. Send my order to the demon kings. First conquer the immortal world and the nether world, then conquer the 72 worlds of the human world. After conquering the world in one fell swoop, of the 72 worlds of the human world, I will divide 36 worlds and give them to the 36 demon kings as rewards. If there are any who fail in battle, their right to receive rewards will be revoked. Demon King 3 Knights brazenly gave out orders. Yan Zhuixing, who stood solemnly to the side, had a ferocious excitement in his eyes. Eunuch Li, who was dressed in white robes and a white hat, memorized all the orders and quickly passed them down. In the howling wind, Bai Qi, who stood in front of the seal to the demon world, had his clothes fluttering. His spotless feet were actually covered in dirt. He looked at the iron seal in front of him with a dazed expression. No one knew what he was thinking. Why haven't Wang Qing and Wu Feng come yet? Anxious voices faintly came from afar. Finally, a trace of hatred flashed across Bai Qi's face. He quickly raised the obsidian underworld light mirror in his hand and a ray of black light shone on the iron seal. The black light was uneven and rapidly pulsed. The densely packed and strange runes on the iron seal suddenly began to move slowly like tadpoles. Finally, they gradually turned into a cheerful swimming motion, condensing into a spiraling whirlpool. The whirlpool slowly sank deeper into the mountain. Then, it cracked, collapsed, and caved in bit by bit. Finally, the entire iron seal was sucked into the belly of the mountain. With a loud rumbling sound, it turned into a rotating black light. The passageway between the immortal realm and the demonic realm that had been sealed for countless years was finally reopened. Bai Qi stood there in a daze. Behind him, there were countless sorrowful cries and screams, but at this moment, he could not hear anything. In his ears, there was only the sound of the opening of the passage to the demon world, and in his eyes, there was only the spiraling black light. Not long after, a group of green figures continuously shot out from the spiraling black light. Their joyful cheers and screams resounded through the sky, and also woke up the dazed Bai Qi. Seeing countless green-clothed monsters quickly occupy the favorable terrain around the exit, he did not know how many people had come out. He could only see that the dense crowd was still expanding in all directions, and the messy formation behind the mountain was also rapidly being nibbled away by the crowd. After the last group of green-clothed people came out, the thousands of people quickly split into two sides in an H shape. No one went to disturb Bai Qi, who was standing in the middle. They turned a blind eye to him, as if he did not exist. However, Bai Qi's gaze suddenly became solemn, and he stared closely at the spiraling black light. He saw a beautiful figure flash out, with a curvaceous waist and a green long dress trailing behind her. A beautiful woman, who was as beautiful as a flower, leisurely walked over with her bright eyes, and finally stopped outside the cave. She opened her naked arms and gently closed her eyes, as if she wanted to embrace the whole world. Her red lips moved, and she murmured, "I didn't think I could return to the celestial world again, and I haven't breathed in the air of the celestial world for a long time, so fragrant." The expression on her face was incomparably enjoyable and intoxicated. "Qing Tian. Why are you the only one out? Where are the others?" Bai Qi's voice broke the beautiful woman's beautiful dream. From his tone and expression, he seemed to be an old acquaintance of this beautiful woman. This woman was one of the 36 great demon kings under Demon Monarch 3 Knights, Qing Tian, Great Demon King. The beautiful woman slowly opened her eyes, and a trace of fierceness flashed in her gaze as she stared at Bai Qi, which was immediately filled with playfulness. She smiled brightly and said, "So it's you, Bai Qi." She leisurely walked to Bai Qi's side with her green long dress, and walked a few rounds around Bai Qi with interest. As she examined him, she chuckled and said, "If you knew it would be like this, why did you do it in the first place?" Bai Qi suddenly turned his hand and directly grabbed onto the swan-like fair and slender neck of the Qing Tian. He pulled her in front of him and tightly clasped her neck. He snorted coldly and said, "What I do is my own business, I don't need you to teach me. Let me ask you, why are you the only one out, where are the others?" Seeing his old acquaintance, his actions seemed to have returned to the turbulent era. Seeing that he actually dared to make a move against the Qing Tian Great Demon King, the green-clothed people on both sides instantly went into an uproar and were about to attack. The Qing Tian Great Demon King, whose neck was being clasped, raised his hand slightly and stopped his subordinates from making a move. He then grabbed Bai Qi's wrist and pushed it away. The smile on his face did not change as he said, "What are you so anxious about? The demon monarch has already summoned the 12 great demon kings to lead the army here. My mission is to guard the passage between the celestial realm and the demon realm and welcome the arrival of the army. But what are you afraid of?" She leisurely walked past Bai Qi, and her bright eyes stared sharply at the silhouettes of the celestial realm people in the distance. She said confidently, "I want to see what kind of people can scare you, Bai Qi." She lightly waved her jade arm and pointed to the distance. She said lazily, "Blockhead, you lead 10,000 people and eliminate those sneaky celestial realm people." Her tone was so calm. "Yes." A strange person wearing a loose green robe with a protruding forehead happily accepted the order. He waved his coarse hand that was like a cattail leaf fan, and a group of people in green robes rushed after him. The disciples of the various sects in the distance saw that the demon sect had already launched an attack, and they immediately scattered. They did not even block the attack before they all ran for their lives. This made the Qing Tian Great Demon King chuckle like a silver bell. He said, "As expected, you are still so weak. I really don't understand how you could be defeated by these people. Don't be too happy too early. These are all people from the various sects who can't be seen in public. If the celestial realm and the netherworld were really so weak, the demon monarch would have already unified the 3 realms. Bai Qi turned around and looked at the people who were chasing in the distance. If it wasn't for you and the Vidra slave, the demon monarch would have naturally unified the three realms. The Qing Tian turned around and looked at him. She stretched out a slender finger and pointed it at Bai Qi's chest. She said, "What a pity. The demon monarch just had to listen to those lies. He came up with some stupid strategy to appease the demon monarch. He wanted to achieve long-term peace and created you and the Vidra slave to be the emperor of the immortal realm and the emperor of the underworld. In the end, you were tricked." Bai Qi waved his hand and pushed her finger away. He sneered and said, "You should be worried about how you are going to defend this place when the strong enemies come." The Qing Tian Great Demon King retracted her finger, but she raised her entire jade arm and hung it lazily on his shoulder. She smiled and said, "Strong enemies. Overturn the two of you. I don't care about them, but I want to see those old opponents again. I don't know if they can stop the advance of the demon world's army." Back then, when the old people of the celestial realm and the netherworld saw that the three realms had been settled, they all went to the netherworld palace one after another. They wholeheartedly searched for the gate to the realm of gods. "I guess they won't come out again." Bai Qi's eyes flashed as if he was thinking of something. They all went to the netherworld palace. The Qing Tian Great Demon King's smile froze. She said in surprise, "So many people have wasted their entire lives without being able to enter. Could it be that they still haven't learned their lesson and still believe in that stupid legend?" Chapter 1152. To be able to reach their level through long and arduous cultivation, they will be lonely once they have no opponents. They can endure for a while, but few can endure for a lifetime. It is because they have been forging ahead their whole lives that they can reach their level. Unlike us, who have too many restraints and too many distracting thoughts, how can we reach the peak? Bai Qi sighed and said, "It doesn't matter if the coiling dragon god really left a passageway to the god realm in the netherworld divine palace. There's no longer any meaning for them to stay in the three realms, especially after the devil path was sealed. They call the netherworld god mansion a small realm of gods. At least there, they can find an equal opponent. I even think that after the 3 nights Demon King unifies the 3 realms, he will feel lonely after a long time. Since they have all left, then the Demon King's unification of the 3 realms is just around the corner. There won't be any more obstacles. In other words, it won't be long before the 4th Demon King takes over." The clear-skied Demon King thought for a while, then smiled. Even if the coiling dragon god really left a passage to the realm of gods in the netherworld god mansion, with Lord Demon God's ability, he couldn't find it. In the end, he still took the path of ascension. Could they be more powerful than Lord Demon God? They are simply deceiving themselves. Hearing this, Bai Qi showed a mocking expression and said scornfully, "What? You want to sleep with the 4th Demon King again? From the Demon God to the 3 Knights? Shut up." The Qing Tian Great Demon King suddenly stopped him, and a layer of frost appeared on his face as he said, "If you didn't climb into my bed, you wouldn't be qualified to be the Emperor of the Underworld. What right do you have to criticize me?" Bai Qi's face darkened and his lips tightened. If it wasn't for the woman in front of him that made him angry, he wouldn't have taken the risk to seal the realm of demons with Jean Tai. Behind every successful person, more or less, there was a painful past that they could not bear to recall. Just when the atmosphere between the two of them became a little heavy, the earth rumbled and shook. Screams and screams could be heard from afar. The man and woman, who were speechless, suddenly looked into the distance and saw a monstrous shadow of a staff sweeping in all directions. They could vaguely see flesh and blood splattering everywhere. The Qing Tian Devil King's expression turned serious. His eyes were sharp as he asked, "Who is this?" "This is the current sovereign of the underworld, the king of the Black Mountain, Wu Feng, who is also Wang Qing's father. The divine wind staff in his hand comes from the netherworld divine palace. It is said that it is a treasure left behind by the great god coiling dragon in the netherworld divine palace after he killed the wind god. Bai Chi said indifferently, he finally arrived. I want to see how you are going to deal with the divine wind staff in his hands. Just as he finished speaking, Wu Feng's voice boomed from afar. Bai Chi. You will be the greatest sinner of the three realms. A black whirlwind rose from the ground. In the blink of an eye, it was as fast as lightning. In an instant, the clouds in the sky began to move. The clouds in the sky were swept up like cotton. The wind strengthened the momentum of the whirlwind. The soil and rocks were sucked in. The trees were uprooted one by one. All of them were sucked into the body of that terrifying whirlwind. Seeing that the whirlwind covered the sky and covered the earth, the Qing Tian Devil King waved his hand and pointed. Countless green lights shot out from the hands of the green-robed men. However, they were instantly swallowed by the whirlwind without any reaction. The so-called demonic cultivators are only a so-so. With me here, the three realms will not tolerate the insolence of you demonic cultivators. A burst of wild laughter came from the whirlwind. The whirlwind blew the sky and the earth, causing the surroundings to darken. Countless soil and rocks shot out in all directions like a heavy downpour. Countless green-robed men formed a formation to defend against the whirlwind. In an instant, green splendor soared into the sky. Those who were caught unprepared screamed in pain. In the blink of an eye, countless people had fallen. After the whirlwind neared, it quickly twisted into a huge hand and grabbed at the Qing Tian Devil King and Bai Chi below. Little bastard who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. The Qing Tian Devil King let out a cold snort. She raised her jade-like arms high up and rapidly expanded into two terrifying old tree claws. It was terrifying to look at. It was hard to imagine that such a beautiful woman could undergo such a terrifying transformation. One of her hands grabbed the huge hand of the whirlwind, while the other was like a hungry tiger trying to dig out its heart. She directly inserted it into the center of the whirlwind, intending to crush Wu Feng who was hiding in the whirlwind. Her imposing manner was incomparably domineering. However, the whirlwind suddenly became faster. Like countless steel knives, it directly minced the big hand that was in a stalemate into countless pieces. Ding-ling-dang-lang, sounds were heard. An incomparably thick staff exploded from the whirlwind and smashed the other big hand into pieces on the spot. In an instant, it collapsed. Ah! The Qing Tian Devil King cried out in pain and retreated a few steps. The two terrifying old claws that were mostly broken quickly retracted. In the blink of an eye, they returned to two jade-like arms. However, the Qing Tian Devil King's face was deathly pale. He no longer had the contempt he had before. Instead, there was some fear in his eyes. It seemed that he did not expect the other party to be able to injure him so easily. Now you know the power of the divine wind staff. Bai Chi's tone was a bit gloating. However, he had already flipped over the obsidian light mirror in his hand. The black light that shot out angrily illuminated the heaven and earth, desperately resisting the approaching whirlwind. Those who stand in my way will die. Wu Feng's wanton laughter came. The pressure produced by the whirlwind was immediately frighteningly great. It forcibly compressed the black light that shot out angrily. The barefooted Bai Chi was quickly pushed back. Like an iron plow plowing the ground, he crashed into the mountain rocks with a rumbling sound. His feet drew a deep trench on the ground. Bai Chi's face was full of grief and indignation. Blood had already been choked out from the corner of his mouth. His arms that were holding the obsidian light mirror were already trembling uncontrollably. It seemed that he could not hold on any longer. However, he had to desperately hold on because there was no way out now. Of course, he could also escape now, but the consequences were not something he could bear. Her divine wind staff had effortlessly forced back the 100,000-strong army of the great devil king Qing Tian. Her fine black hair had unknowingly come loose, and her beautiful hair was dancing in the strong wind. She stared at Bai Chi for a while, and suddenly, she heard a loud and clear neigh of a horse coming from behind her. It was a little breathtaking. Looking back, she saw an unusually strong and fat black steed. A ghost-faced rider wearing a ferocious mask was sitting on it. His whole body was covered in black armor. One of his hands was holding the reins, and the other was holding a curled black whip. The strong black steed's mouth and nose spat out green flames from time to time. A man and a horse suddenly appeared from the passage to the demon realm. It was incomparably strange. The eyes of the demon king Qing Tian lit up, and he said with incomparable joy, "Black Knight. You came at the right time. Quickly come and help me kill this thief." He pointed his finger at the terrifying hurricane that was pressing down on them. At this moment, another 2 riders leaped out from the passage to the demon realm. They were also black steeds that spat out green flames. However, the 2 people on the horses held the reins in one hand and held up 2 large black flags in the other. The flags fluttered in the wind, and the 2 phosphorescent words, "Black Knight," were extremely conspicuous on the black flags. However, these 2 riders carried long swords on their backs and wore black battle robes. Their faces were not covered with the ferocious ghost mask. In just a short while, countless Black Knight troops had already galloped out from the passage to the demon realm. And the rider wearing the ghost-faced rider had already fiercely lashed out the black whip in his hand. A black whip shadow that could split the heaven and earth broke through the darkness. Like a black thunderbolt, it directly struck into the hurricane that was pressing down on them with a boom. He then sat firmly on the back of the horse. His big arm pulled back, and the black steed he was sitting on stubbornly stepped back. "My divine wind staff!" Wu Feng's cry of surprise came from within the hurricane. The black whirlwind also collapsed in an instant. Amidst the flying dust, the divine wind staff was actually pulled over by the black whip. With someone helping him, Bai Chi, who was resisting tenaciously, was finally able to catch his breath. However, he was already buried deep in the ground. Only his head was exposed above the ground, and his face was pale. The demon king Qing Tian suddenly shouted, "Wu Feng! Today is the day you die." Seeing that the divine wind staff was trapped by the Black Knight, she immediately flew up into the sky. Her green long dress that was dragging behind her quickly grew long like a peacock spreading its tail. Her arms once again revealed ferocious giant claws. Behind her was a huge green net that covered the sky. Her black hair danced wildly in the big net. Her whole body was like a ferocious ghost pouncing on Wu Feng in the sky. "Divine wind staff, break!" Wu Feng shouted in shock. The divine wind staff suddenly grew bigger, directly shattering the black whip that was entangling her. At the same time, the 9 big rings on the pumpkin-shaped staff suddenly exploded with 9 black wind blades. They shot out in all directions like ghosts, immediately cutting the green dress that was covering the sky into pieces. The pair of giant claws of the demon king Qing Tian were also easily destroyed by the 9 black wind blades. She let out a cry of surprise and quickly shot up into the sky to avoid the 9 frightening black wind blades. The eyes of Ghostface were also very shocked. The long whip in his hand once again grew long and swung out. Countless whip shadows that could split the heavens and the earth struck the divine wind staff with a rumbling sound. The power of each whip was stronger than the previous one, and the divine wind staff was directly sent flying into the sky. Wu Feng, who could not control it, was shocked. 9 black wind blades protected his body and quickly chased after the divine wind staff, afraid that it would fall into the hands of others. The Black Knight on the back of the horse retracted his whip. Ignoring the danger in front of him, he shook the reins in his hand and the black horse immediately spat out a large ball of green flames. Its 4 hooves flew into the sky and quickly sped away. 2 knights holding large banners quickly chased after him. Behind him, an endless stream of black knights leaped out of the demon world passageway and quickly chased after him. An army of knights flew across the sky and set off a black demonic cloud. They were heading in the direction of the passageway between the netherworld and immortal realms. Black Knights. How dare you leave me in the lurch? If something happens to the demon world passageway here, let's see if Demon King 3 Knight will forgive you. The Demon King Qing Tian's shout echoed in the sky. However, the leader of the Black Pegasus army did not even reply. It was as if the danger here had nothing to do with him. He only cared about his own journey without stopping. High up in the sky, the Demon King Qing Tian, whose clothes were in tatters, looked at the Black Knight army moving away. He was so angry that he clenched his teeth and stomped his feet. However, there was nothing he could do. With a flash of green light, he rearranged his clothes and flashed back to the ground. He supported by Qi, who was staggering up from the ground. Chapter 1153. Wu Feng, who had chased after the wind god's staff, was bewildered, but when he saw that the Black Knights didn't have any intention of fighting him, he was overjoyed and wanted to take the chance to kill Bai Qi and Demon King Qing Tian. Who would have thought that as soon as they got close, they would see a strong man with bulging muscles and blue veins that looked like earthworms shoot out from the demon world's passage. He carried a snow-white broadsword on his shoulder and stood in the air, looking around like a tiger, his long beard swaying, exuding a domineering aura. Wu Feng was shocked and didn't dare to act rashly. But then he saw that the man seemed to have gone crazy. He held his broadsword and laughed wildly. I didn't think that there would be a day when I would return to the three realms, haha. His laughter shook people's eardrums. Li Tian. You came at the right time. Help me kill this thief and guard the tunnel to the demon world. The Demon King of Qing Tian was extremely surprised. He flashed to the side of the bare-chested muscular man and pointed his finger at Wu Feng, who was looking at him from afar. You still can't beat him. Li Tian looked at Wu Feng in surprise and laughed. He's just a late-stage emperor of the underworld. Can't you just use your green demon seed to turn him into your puppet? Demon King Qing Tian stomped his feet. You know that Lord Demon God forbade me from using the green demon seed in the three realms. Before Demon King 3 Knights agreed, I wouldn't dare to use it. Stop wasting time. That person's wind god staff is a divine weapon. I have all my abilities but can't do anything to him. Come help me. Otherwise, I won't be able to answer to Demon King if the tunnel to the demon world is lost. So that's how it is. Li Tian looked at the wind god staff in Wu Feng's hand with interest. It did look a bit restless. But then he saw a group of muscular men carrying broadswords coming from the tunnel to the demon world. He shook his head apologetically. Qing Tian. I'm sorry this time. Demon King has ordered us to go to the underworld to open the tunnel between the underworld and demon world after we leave the celestial world. Shuang and I have to guard the tunnel. Demon King said that we can't stop for any reason, or we'll be killed. But there's no need for you to worry. The Demon Lord has already ordered 12 Demon Kings to lead an army here, and soon after, Ao Erlang will lead an army to reinforce you. I won't be accompanying you. Li Tian waved the snow-white broadsword in his hand and immediately led a large group of sword-wielding men away. Among them, there were quite a number of sword-wielding women who only wore loose trousers and tube tops. Their figures were fit and beautiful, attracting the eyes of others. The Devil King of Qing Tian was speechless. She finally understood why the Shadow Knights had ignored her request for help. When Wu Feng, who was in the distance, heard that 12 great demon kings were leading an army, he was shocked on the spot. He grasped the divine wind staff in his hand and looked at the demon world's passageway below and hesitated. He was completely confident that he could use the wind god's staff in his hand to block the passage to the demon world so that others could not open it again. However, after thinking about it again and again, he still could not bear to give up the wind god's staff. One had to know that without the wind god's staff, he was nothing. Anyway, he did not make it in time to stop the demon world's passageway from opening. Therefore, he gritted his teeth and ran away with the wind god's staff, not caring about the lives of the living beings in the three realms. The devil king of Qing Tian was stunned and looked at Bai Qi below. Both of them did not think that Wu Feng would run away just like that. In the end, the devil king of Qing Tian was perturbed. He did not know if that fellow had other tricks up his sleeves. At this moment, a blood-red light swept out from the demon world's passageway. Instantly, the pungent smell of blood filled the air. A sinister man dressed in blood-red clothes appeared in the air and looked around. His gaze fell on the devil king of Qing Tian and he nodded slightly as a greeting. Blood Shadow. The devil king of Qing Tian also greeted him. Then, he immediately saw a group of people dressed in blood-red clothes rushing out from the demon world's passageway. It was like a flood of red blood. There was actually a faint red blood mist in the air. The devil king of Qing Tian flung his long robe and quickly left. An endless stream of people dressed in blood-red clothes followed him. When the thick smell of blood in the air had just dissipated, another blurry phantom shot out from the demon world's passageway. It floated in the air like an illusion. It was impossible to see what the person inside looked like. The devil king of Qing Tian shouted, "Nightmare." The illusory figure's voice was already confused as he replied, "Bai Qi. The devil king has ordered you to follow us to the underworld to open the seal between the underworld and the demon world. Quickly follow us." As soon as he finished speaking, a dreamy and illusory fog surged out from the demon world's passageway. One could see many figures inside, but they could not be seen clearly. Bai Qi looked deeply at the devil king of Qing Tian. There was an indescribable, inexplicable look in his eyes. He resolutely turned around and followed this army shrouded in fog to chase after the devil king of Qing Tian. The devil king of Qing Tian looked at Bai Qi, who had gone far away, and bit her red lips. She suddenly turned around and swept her gaze over the green-clothed subordinates who had been frightened by the divine wind staff. She roared, "All of you, guard the demon world's passageway properly. If anyone dares to escape, kill them without mercy." Her voice was frighteningly sharp, and there was a tremor of anger in it. The large group of green-clothed people who had scattered like sheep quickly gathered back to occupy advantageous terrain to continue guarding the passageway to the demon world. In the supreme demon palace of the demon world, Yan Zhuixing was still standing to the left of the devil king of Qing Tian's blood jade throne. Eunuch Li, who was dressed in white, was slightly bowing to the right, reporting the situation of the various armies entering the celestial world. Seeing that things were progressing smoothly, the devil king of Qing Tian, who was listening with his eyes closed, finally let out a sigh of relief. He opened his eyes and tilted his head slightly to look at Yan Zhuixing on the left. He smiled and said, "After we pacify the three realms, I will personally lead some people to accompany you to the blue sea outside the celestial world and search for the blue sea essence in the blue sea death trap. This will help you cleanse the devil barrier that has accumulated in your body due to cultivating demonic techniques. Thank you, Devil King, for your favor, but..." Yan Zhuixing said excitedly, "It is recorded in the demonic book that the blue sea essence is produced from the blue crystals that fell from the endless starry sky countless years ago. It is unknown how many years it takes for it to be produced. It is very precious and can be said to be the essence of the universe. After Lord Devil God discovered it, he treated it as a treasure. Lord Devil God also borrowed the blue sea essence to temper himself, allowing his cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds. It is a treasure that cultivators can only encounter, but not seek. It is a pity that most people do not know its profoundness. Even the three young masters did not enjoy such a fortuitous encounter. How can Yan Zhuixing dare to monopolize it? You are worrying too much." The devil king of Qing Tian waved his hand slightly and said, "Not everyone can enjoy the blue sea essence. Those who are not talented will not be able to enjoy it. If they use it, they will suffer a backlash. If it is light, it will change a person's personality. If it is heavy, it will make a person lose their mind and lose their sense of self. This is the so-called chi deviation in cultivation. If it is serious, they will not be able to withstand the baptism of the blue sea essence and explode. Yan Zhuixing was slightly surprised. He had never seen this in the records of the demonic book. The devil king of Qing Tian continued, I know the talent of my 3 sons better than anyone else. With their intelligence, they will not be able to withstand the baptism of the blue sea essence. Letting them enjoy it will only harm them. Sigh. My youngest son is quite intelligent. Unfortunately, the demon realm was sealed back then, so I could not obtain the blue sea essence to help him refine his body and change his fate of not being able to cultivate. Otherwise, my demonic path would have gained another rare cultivation genius. Sigh. My talent is much higher than that of my 3 sons. Back then, I could not even withstand the baptism of the blue sea essence, let alone them. Hearing this, Yan Zhuixing immediately said respectfully, the demon lord is too modest. If Yan Zhuixing had the ability of the demon lord, he wouldn't have been destroyed by that traitor Yu Qianqiu back then. You don't have to flatter me. The devil king of Qing Tian's gaze looked outside the tall palace gate and said with a faint smile, you are different. Since you were able to endure the pain and torture of the 7-star blood-stabbing art, you are qualified to enjoy the baptism of the blue sea essence. Otherwise, Lord Demon God would not have secretly protected you in the divine realm. Furthermore, you are now the vice palace lord of my demon palace and the next devil king's successor. No matter which aspect, you are more qualified to enjoy the baptism of the blue sea essence than my 3 sons. So, you don't have to delay it anymore. Otherwise, you will be hypocritical. Let's be honest with each other. There is no need to be so polite. Yes. Yan Zhuixing replied respectfully. Suddenly, he felt that Eunuch Li seemed to be secretly observing him. When he raised his head, he saw that Eunuch Li was slightly lowering his head and not moving at all. The feeling just now seemed to be an illusion. In the illusory immortal city, in an empty shop, Yu Qianqiu and Nong Zhu stood behind the open window and looked at the dense crowd in the central square at the foot of the mountain. At this moment, the entire illusory immortal city was occupied by rogue cultivators from all directions. It was impossible to count how many people there were. It was said that the Heartless Palace had gathered 2 to 3 million rogue cultivators here. The External Affairs Commander under the former Immortal Emperor Jin Tai, the current Vice Palace Lord of the Heartless Palace, Wu Xiong, was floating in the air. He was giving an impassioned speech to the countless people below, enticing the rogue cultivators from all over the world to seize the opportunity to make contributions. In short, he gave a lot of temptations that those rogue cultivators who were used to suffering couldn't resist. Wu Xiong's rhythmic voice echoed in the sky. Behind him were many disciples of the Heartless Palace. As Yu Qianqiu squinted his eyes and stared at Wu Xiong, Nong Zhu, who was beside him, suddenly sent him a telepathic message and sighed, even I am a little tempted after hearing it. I can't wait to follow the Heartless Palace and have a bright future. Unfortunately, I have already boarded your pirate ship. Her words seemed to be teasing him, reminding him that he often did such bewitching things. Yu Qianqiu acted as if he didn't hear it. He coldly snorted and replied, they are just a group of people who gathered in a hurry. Wang Qing hasn't appeared yet. Can Wu Xiong lead them to stop the invasion of the demon realm? Humph. Believing in such nonsense is asking for trouble. When they wake up from their dream, I hope Wu Xiong can still lead the Heartless Palace to advance and retreat with them. At this moment, the neighing of countless war horses came from high up in the sky. Everyone looked up and saw rolling black clouds coming from the horizon. Not long later, they saw countless shadow cavalry riding on heavenly horses that were spitting green flames as they flew across the sky. Countless horse hooves were faintly discernible in the black fog. The shadow cavalry was like a long dragon, its head could not be seen in front and its tail could not be seen at the back. When it passed overhead, a huge pressure caused everyone below to keep quiet out of fear. The momentum was very terrifying, no one had ever seen such a formation before. Chapter 1154. The ghost-faced rider took the lead, and the two riders behind him each held a large flag. The two words, Shadow Riders, fluttered on the black flag. Behind the flag was a column of 10 riders riding side by side. The 100,000 shadow riders at the back were majestic and unconstrained. Countless green flames flickered in the black mist created by their killing intent. Wu Xiong, who had just made an impassioned speech, was speechless as he stared silently at the sky. Just the two words Black Knights were enough to strike fear into the hearts of everyone below. It wasn't because they had heard of their great name, but because wherever the flag flew, the invincible aura it exuded made everyone feel a great deal of pressure. Although the sky above the hallucinatory immortal city was obstructed by the white fog, the people above couldn't see the people below, but the people below could see the people above. But with so many people gathered below, it was impossible for the black armored army above to not sense it at all. But they were completely arrogant, as if they didn't care about everything below. Was this the momentum of the demon realm's army? Everyone asked themselves apprehensively. Then, they stared at Wu Xiong. He had just said that he would lead everyone to fight to the death against the demon realm. Why was there no reaction now? Behind the window of the shop, Yu Qianqiu smiled and transmitted his voice to Nong Zhu. Ha! Wu Xiong slapped his own mouth. To be honest, he was very happy to see Wu Xiong being humiliated. After all, the two of them had a grudge. No one wanted their enemy to be mighty. Look! Nong Zhu suddenly pointed outside the window. Yu Qianqiu looked back and the smile on his face froze. He saw that Wu Xiong had already pulled out his sword and pointed it to the sky. He looked around and shouted angrily, "Today, those who fight side by side with my heartless palace will be my life and death brothers tomorrow. Today is the day to fight to the death against the demon realm. Kill!" The disciples of Unrequited Love Palace behind him shouted in unison, and the 3 million people below also let out battle cries that shook the heavens. Even the two people in the loft felt the shop shake. It was as if those people had taken stimulants, all of them had excited expressions on their faces as they took out all sorts of weapons and soared into the sky. They followed Wu Xiong and the others as they killed their way into the horizon, heading straight in the direction where the Black Knights had gone. Their imposing manner was simply indomitable, making one's blood boil. It was estimated that if each of them spat, they would be able to drown 100,000 shadow cavalry soldiers half to death. Yu Qianqiu and Nong Zhu looked at each other in disbelief. Damn it! Did I see a ghost? Yu Qianqiu spat. He asked himself if he had gauged the heart of a gentleman with his own mean measure. Then he shook his head and said, "That's not right." He teleported to the window behind him and looked at the sky. Nongzhu did not know what he saw, but her face showed an expression of understanding. Then she saw him slap the window in front of him and directly rush out. Nongzhu immediately flew out of the window. They stood side by side on the roof of the shop. The sky was high and the clouds were thin. The view was extremely wide. In the distance, the sky was full of figures flying over. It was hard to count how many people there were, but it was estimated that there were tens of millions of people. No one knew how many people were behind. Even the sky was half dark. The scene was unimaginably large. The condensed murderous intent was like a tide, covering the sky and the earth, directly blocking the advance of the Shadow Cavalry Army. And the Shadow Cavalry Army quickly formed a battle formation, without the slightest intention to retreat. It seemed that they wanted to fight alone at all costs, but it gave people the feeling that they were like ants trying to shake a tree. Wang Qing has finally arrived. It seems that people from all sects have arrived. Yu Qianzhou's eyes paused on the reflective silver mask in the distance. Then he roughly glanced at the clothes of the countless people who suddenly appeared. He sighed with emotion and said, "The immortal underworld demon-killing alliance. It's rare that they are united. It seems that because of everyone's fear of the diabolism, all sects have been forced to unite and fight desperately." Nongzhu was so shocked by such a huge scene that she couldn't speak. After a while, she murmured, "No wonder Wu Xiong is so confident. No wonder these loose cultivators are so unafraid of death." It turns out that they saw a large number of reinforcements coming and want to fish in troubled waters. While the two of them were talking, the shadow cavalry army had already been surrounded by countless people from all sides, so much so that they could no longer be seen. In the crowd, the eyes behind the silver mask and the ghost mask looked at each other silently. It seemed that they wanted to see the story behind the other's mask. The two only needed to give an order and the people from both sides would start a fight to the death. "Who are you?" The two asked the same question at the same time. However, behind the ghost mask was a woman's voice. As soon as the words came out, the two were stunned at the same time. It seemed that they didn't expect that they would have such a tacit understanding. The people around them also looked at each other. Wang Qing could see that the other's cultivation was higher than his, but he was still full of confidence. He said calmly, "Turn over a new leaf and fight against the demon king of the three nights with us. If you do, we can let you go. Otherwise, we will kill you without mercy." His right hand was already touching the storage bracelet on his left wrist. However, the answer he got this time was the other's whip. The shadow cavalry charged straight into the heavy encirclement. With a wave of his hand, the shiny black whip in his hand suddenly lengthened. Like a long spear, it swept across the endless crowd in front of him. It immediately caused a wave of shocked and angry shouts. Almost at the same time, Yu Qianzhou and Nongzhu, who were standing on the roof, saw a dazzling snow blue light explode out from the countless gaps in the crowd. It shone brightly, as if a huge snow blue thorny ball had suddenly appeared in the sky. The light was so dazzling that no one dared to look directly at it. The pupils under the ghost mask suddenly shrank. Feeling the unparalleled power of the sweeping snow blue light, the long whip in his hand instantly retracted like a spring. Then, layer upon layer, it shot out again. It set off 1,000 layers of visible waves that surged towards Wang Qing, trying to stop the destructive snow blue light. Bang, bang, bang. Thousands of rapid explosions sounded like one. The layers of black whip that had been twisted and turned 1,000 times instantly broke into more than 2,000 pieces. A long whip bent into 1,000 pieces, which was equivalent to more than 2,000 layers of defense. However, it still couldn't stop the furious attack of the snow blue light. In an instant, it was completely destroyed. However, the long whip's defense finally weakened the power of the snow blue light. With a crisp, ding sound, it finally slashed at the ghost mask. Then, the ghost mask broke into 2 pieces and flew away. Her beautiful hair was blown away by the fierce wind, and her beautiful face under the ghost mask was filled with shock. She looked at the huge 6-dragon snow blue sword in Wang Qing's hand in disbelief, as if she couldn't believe that there was someone in this world who could display such terrifying power with a single strike. The whole army of black-armored soldiers was shocked. They didn't expect that there was such a terrifying figure in the immortal world. With one sword, he forced the great devil king of the black-armored soldiers to be unable to fight back. The people of the immortal world were refreshed and immediately became confident. As soon as the two of them made their moves, it was equivalent to launching the general order to attack. Suddenly, streams of light shot in all directions. Countless fairy weapons bombarded the surrounded army of 100,000 black-armored soldiers. The latter immediately cut off their means of retreat and sank their boats to fight back desperately. The tens of millions of people of the immortal underworld demon-killing alliance couldn't do anything at once. So, they quickly circled back and surrounded the army of 100,000 black-armored soldiers again and again. The encirclement was even tighter than an iron bucket. Even so, most of them didn't even have a chance to fight back. The more than 3 million rogue cultivators immediately fell into a terrible situation. Their cultivation was not very high. With the counterattack of the strong enemy in front and the encirclement of the people of the various sects behind them, they couldn't even escape. In fact, not to mention them, even the sects at the front were suffering unspeakably. They were also facing the same predicament as the more than 3 million rogue cultivators. Even their escape route was blocked by their own people. They could only desperately kill the enemy. If they didn't kill all the enemies, how could their own people make way for them to take a rest first? In an instant, streams of light shot in all directions in the sky. The sound of explosions was even more concentrated than a barrage of cannons. The encirclement was in a mess. Endless screams could be heard. However, it was obvious that the morale of the various sects was rising. Obviously, under the circumstances of eliminating the casualties, the effect of group fighting was quite good. With a loud bang, the heavy encirclement was broken open. A black shadow blasted through the crowd and shot straight into the sky. Behind him, 6 flying dragons chased after him with amazing momentum. Wang Qing also rushed out of the crowd and flew into the sky, staring at the great demon king of shadow cavalry. His intention was very obvious. He didn't care whether he could kill the great demon king of shadow cavalry or not. In short, he wanted to entangle her so that she wouldn't have a chance to attack the others. The two of them fought one-on-one above the 9th heaven. Yu Qianqiu and Nongzhu were stunned. In the sky, the great demon king of shadow cavalry, who was chased by the 6 flying dragons and had no temper, suddenly shouted, "Li Tian! Come and help me. If we don't get rid of this person, you and Shuang won't be able to hold the passage between the immortal underworld and the underworld." The two of them quickly looked back and saw a large group of densely packed figures flying over from afar. A stream of light took the lead and shot over at high speed. A bare-chested man with a saber just happened to hover above the two of them. The bare-chested man with a saber looked at the battle situation with a dignified expression. He suddenly pointed the saber in his hand at the place where the group was fighting and shouted angrily, "Charge!" As soon as the order to attack was issued, a large group of people rushed over and shouted angrily in unison, "Kill!" The shout shook the heaven and earth. Everyone held their sabers and rushed to kill. Another army of 100,000 instantly crashed into the fierce encirclement like a torrent. However, the difference in the number of people between the two sides was still too great. As soon as the new army of 100,000 joined the battle, they were immediately surrounded by tens of millions of people like a clay ox entering the sea. Chapter 1155. Putting aside the fact that he had to constantly guard against these sword intents, the most troublesome thing was the flying dragon itself. Its sharpness was simply rare in the world. After colliding with his great on saber several times, a few deep scratches had already appeared on the great on saber. He didn't dare to use too much strength to resist, fearing that he would accidentally break the great on saber. Not long after, Li Tian figured out the secret of the 6-dragon snow blue sword. He found that the snow blue rainbow dragons on the 3 flying swords were actually transformed by that strange sword intent. The reason why there was such a strange sword intent on the flying swords was obviously that someone had used an extremely powerful sword intent to stimulate the sword true spirit in the swords to guard the sword intent. Once controlled by someone, the flying swords would immediately erupt with a powerful sword intent to boost the power, and the power would multiply. Li Tian, who was chased around by the 3 flying dragons, was instantly miserable. He had no room to use his abilities when encountering such powerful treasures. Now, he finally understood why Jin Tai and Bai Qi, whose cultivation was similar to his, lost the thrones of Immortal Emperor and Emperor of the Underworld respectively. He finally understood why the arrogant He Qi Great Demon King would be chased around everywhere and even ask him for help. His feelings were indeed strange. Now, he quite regretted listening to the words of the He Qi Great Demon King and getting involved in this battle. But if he fled now, what about the 100,000 soldiers he brought to guard the Immortal Realm and Netherworld Realm? Was he going to just leave them here? Wouldn't he be laughed at by others later? He finally found himself in the same dilemma as the He Qi Great Demon King. Damn it! This guy's cultivation is only at the late stage of Immortal Emperor, but this flying sword has surpassed the 9th grade Immortal Artifact. It's clearly a divine artifact. Where did this bastard get it? There's no way to fight this battle. Li Tian, who was being chased around, was so angry that he screamed. When he saw Wang Qing calmly and easily controlling the flying sword to deal with the two famous great demon kings in the devil world, he immediately cursed, "Who are you? If you have the ability, let's put down the treasures and fight with our real strength. Do you believe that I won't slap you into a pile of dog shit in 3 moves?" Wang Qing didn't care about him at all. He only cared about blocking the two of them and buying enough time for the Immortal Underworld Demon-slaying alliance to kill the enemies. Nongzhu, who was standing on the roof and watching the battle, could not take her eyes off it. She felt that this battle was worthwhile. She sighed and said, "I didn't expect Wang Qing to be so powerful. No wonder he could destroy the Immortal Palace." Just as he finished speaking, Li Tian shouted angrily from the sky, "Blood Shadow! Hurry up and help me. If we don't get rid of this person, you and I won't be able to guard the passage between the Immortal Realm and the Netherworld." These words were exactly the same as the original words of the Great Devil King of the Dark Cavalry. Yu Qianzhou and Nongzhu hurriedly looked back and saw a red mist surging from afar, which made their hearts tremble. Nongzhu exclaimed, "More reinforcements are coming. I'm afraid Wang Qing can't hold on anymore. Kill!" A sharp cry came from afar, and a red light was the first to shoot up into the sky. Wang Qing waved his blue robe sleeve again and said sternly, "Go." One of the 3 flying dragons that were fighting the Shadow Knights and Li Tian flew out and quickly faced the red light that shot over. Immediately, a sinister-looking man in blood clothes appeared and fought with 2 of the flying dragons. The red tide that followed also crashed into the fierce and grand battle circle, and was once again swallowed by the battlefield formed by tens of millions of people. The sects of the Immortal Realm were worried that Wang Qing wouldn't be able to hold on, but they found that Wang Qing was still able to fight against 3 demonic masters with ease. Everyone's confidence skyrocketed, and they trapped the 300,000 troops of the demonic world and slaughtered them. Shocked and angry shouts resounded throughout the world, and the battle continued to become white-hot. "Li Tian! How dare you trick me?" The sharp voice of the Great Devil King of the Blood Shadow sounded in the air. After being tortured by the 2 flying dragons, he wanted to run but couldn't bear to abandon his 100,000 troops. He immediately found that he was tricked by the Great Devil King of Li Tian. Li Tian, who was tormented to the point of losing his temper, immediately said, "Blood Shadow. Look at what you're saying. Everyone is fighting for the demonic lord in the 3 realms. How is it me who tricked you? According to what you said, didn't I get tricked by the Dark Cavalry? Damn it! Who knew that we would encounter such a monster? Thinking about it, it's really hard on Jin Tai and Bai Qi. Those 2 guys must have been chased everywhere. Speaking of which, we have to thank this guy. If Jin Tai and Bai Qi weren't chased everywhere by this guy, why would they open the passage to the demonic world and let us out?" He spoke out the helpless thoughts of Jin Tai and Bai Qi. If the 2 of them heard this, would they feel that they had found a confidant? In fact, with everyone's strength, it wouldn't be a problem for anyone to kill 10 Wang Qing, but the key was that the divine weapon in Wang Qing's hand was too powerful. It couldn't be measured by strength at all. Actually, at this moment, Jin Tai was hiding and watching the battle from afar. He had experienced Wang Qing's strength before. Back then, he and Bai Qi could only barely block one flying dragon each. The three great demon kings who were rushing over were about the same level of cultivation as him and Bai Qi. In other words, Wang Qing could still free up 3 flying dragons to deal with him. After thinking about it, he suppressed the impulse to join the battle and decided to wait and see. At this moment, Li Tian's eyes suddenly lit up. He said, "Blood Shadow, look, the Nightmare Lord is here." Blood Shadow took a glance and indeed saw a large area of fog rushing over at lightning speed. He immediately sneered. "Li Tian, why aren't you calling the Nightmare Lord over to help?" Li Tian rejected him without any hesitation. "I won't call you anymore. You said that I cheated you, so it's hard for me to explain myself. What if I attract the Nightmare Lord and you throw dirty water on me? Wouldn't I be wronged? If you want to call him, call him. You dog. You win." Blood Shadow glared at Li Tian angrily. Then, with the thought that if he was going to be unlucky, everyone would be unlucky, he shouted, "Nightmare Lord! Hurry up and help us. If we don't get rid of this person, I'm afraid we won't be able to successfully open the passage between the netherworld and demon world. How are we going to answer to the Demon King then?" "Kill!" An ethereal command came from afar. A shadow shot over with Bai Qi following closely behind. The two of them directly flashed into the sky and joined forces to attack Wang Qing. "Go!" Wang Qing swung his sleeves. A resolute look of fighting to the death flashed in his eyes. 2 flying dragons roared and shot out rapidly towards the Nightmare Lord and Bai Qi. The 100,000-strong army in the fog swiftly joined the battle in the distance. These people, in addition to the 300,000-strong army from before, were the elites of the 4 great demon kings. Although the various sects of the immortal world had the advantage in numbers, they were also starting to feel somewhat overwhelmed. The number of casualties was rapidly increasing. If it wasn't for the fact that Wang Qing was able to fight against the 5 great experts by himself and stabilize the morale of the army, many of them would have already fled. In addition, the sect leader of the Lifefire Palace, Wu Jun, was constantly saying that everyone had already participated in this war. The Devil Path would definitely not let them off after this, inciting the various sects to fight to the death against the Devil Army. The situation was truly tragic. "I'm coming!" An angry shout rang out. A golden light shot over. Jin Tai, who was hiding far away, finally appeared to participate in the battle. The reason why he appeared now was because 5 of Wang Qing's 6 flying dragons had already been held up. He didn't have to worry about being ganged up on by the flying dragons. Moreover, if he didn't appear now, he wouldn't be able to answer to the Demon King 3 nights. He believed that there would be more Devil World experts rushing over. He was confident that he could deal with 1 flying dragon until reinforcements arrived. Needless to say, Wang Qing immediately sent out another flying dragon to deal with Jin Tai. With his cultivation, dealing with 6 experts equivalent to the Great Demon King at the same time was quite strenuous. It didn't take long for him to become a little clumsy and tired. Even so, Yu Qianqiu and Nongzhu couldn't help but gasp. Yu Qianqiu shook his head slowly and said, "Even if Wang Qing loses this battle, it's still a glorious defeat." Nongzhu nodded with a solemn expression. "Good. With his cultivation, he won't be able to hold on for long." The moment Jin Tai arrived, he immediately shouted an idea to the others, "Everyone, increase the frequency of your attacks. Even if we can't kill him, we can exhaust him to death." A heart-wrenching scene immediately appeared in the sky. A loud sound shook the sky. The 6 experts surrounded Wang Qing like a wheel of wind and fire, stirring up the sky and earth. The 6 wyverns began to let out waves of sorrowful cries. Gradually, they withdrew their huge snow-blue bodies to protect Wang Qing, who was in the middle of the fight. The lower jaw under the silver mask of Wang Qing had begun to overflow with blood. A trace of sadness flashed in his eyes. Suddenly, he looked up to the sky and let out a long roar of high fighting spirit, stirring the clouds, and forcibly cheering himself up. However, everyone could see that Wang Qing was at the end of his strength. The people of various sects who were desperately fighting in the distance suddenly wavered. Some sect masters were already discussing where to retreat. In fact, they had no problem dealing with the 400,000 Devil World Army. However, the key was that they knew that once Wang Qing was defeated, the 6 experts would join the battle. No matter how many people there were, they couldn't stop them. By then, everyone would be slaughtered. At this moment, an uplifting shout came from afar, "Immortal World allies, hold on. He Chi has led the 300 million underworld army to help our allies." Everyone looked over and saw that the sky in the distance had turned completely dark. A dark mass of flowing light surpassed the locusts that filled the sky and flew over. The scene could be said to be absolutely shocking. Just the number of 300 million was enough to shake the morale of the various sects in the immortal world. The underworld army, which consisted of 100 million Dark Nether army and 200 million subordinates of the underworld heroes, quickly joined the battle and immediately beat the demon world army to the point where they couldn't fight back. After all, the underworld heroes were not to be trifled with. Madame He Chi, who had flown over on her giant green snake, saw that Wang Qing was powerless. She immediately ordered the 100 million Dark Nether army to attack the 6 experts. The concentrated attacks that poured down like rain immediately shocked the 6 experts. They were instantly beaten to a miserable state. The Dark Nether army wasn't ordinary scattered soldiers. They had more or less undergone some training and were adept at collective attacks. The 100 million soldiers might be nothing to them individually, but the combined attack was something even Demon King 3 Knights couldn't handle. Chapter 1156. For other forces, no one would feel at ease handing over their own people to someone else. This way, they would restrict each other and not be able to display their full strength. However, the Army of Onyx was an organization that operated on military orders. Thus, when Madame Blackpool gave an order, the army of over 100 million could quickly organize and obey her orders. Thus, the Army of Onyx was even more united than the tens of millions of people in the immortal world. They were able to unleash boundless power at once. Millions of people gathered in one group. They ignored the others and focused their attacks on one expert. In this way, there were more than 100 groups surrounding the 6 experts. Space was limited, and the 100 million people couldn't squeeze together to attack. Thus, the 6 experts were trapped in layers. A huge human ball appeared in the sky. It was a spectacular sight. Rumble. The people outside heard a terrifying explosion, but they didn't know what was happening inside the human ball. Countless streams of light shot out from inside. Nightmare was the first to be hit. He was scared out of his wits. He had never been attacked by so many people in his life. Just looking at the number of people was enough to scare him. Caught off guard, he made a huge mistake. Just as he was about to teleport away, he felt a chill on his back. The incomparably sharp 6-dragon snow blue sword had chopped off half of his shoulder with a honk sound. Even his arm was separated from his body. The King of Nightmares, whose figure could not be seen clearly, was beaten to reveal his true form on the spot. Countless rain-like sword wills quickly invaded his body through the wound on his shoulder, forcing the King of Nightmares, who was trying to escape, to slow down slightly. However, in that moment of sluggishness, it was immediately bombarded by the streams of light released by the countless treasures. Nightmare didn't even have time to scream. Perhaps his voice was drowned out by the countless explosions. In short, his entire body was smashed into pieces. This scene scared the other 5 people even more. Their faces changed drastically. No matter how high their cultivation was, seeing Nightmare, who was of the same cultivation level as them, killed in one move, they didn't have any intention of fighting anymore. At this moment, there was only one thought in their minds: run away. Blackpool bitch. I'll make you a prostitute for all eternity. Bai Chi shouted angrily. He didn't expect that the power he let go would become a fatal threat. Break. Li Tian, who continuously teleported to avoid the attacks, grabbed the fleeting opportunity. The great lightsaber in his hand emitted a shocking saber shadow. With the momentum of splitting the heavens and earth, he slashed out of the encirclement. Instantly, tens of thousands of people died under his saber. Seeing that the wyverns behind him were attacking again, and that the countless streams of light would not give him a chance to catch his breath, Li Tian did not hesitate to drag his great on saber and teleport out of the gap that he had created. After charging out of the human ball, he fled for his life without looking back. The obsidian netherlight mirror in Bai Chi's hand displayed a large-scale killing power. Seizing the opportunity, he quickly attacked. The monstrous black light directly turned the crowd in front of him into ashes, and a huge gap was quickly opened. Bai Chi rushed out, and the Black Knight Great Demon King behind him also seized the opportunity to rush out. Almost in the time it took for a breath, the opening was quickly blocked again. Afterward, Kinta and Blood Shadow also directly broke out of the encirclement with their powerful cultivation and quickly fled. The remaining 5 Great Demon King-level powerhouses were scared out of their wits. With the lesson of succubus being killed in seconds, no one had the courage to turn around and fight back. It was more important for them to leave their underlings and escape. Hundreds of millions of people joined forces, but they still couldn't trap a few people. Instead, hundreds of thousands of people were killed by a few people in the blink of an eye and escaped. This was the horror of a true powerhouse. If hundreds of millions of people didn't join forces, these few people could do whatever they wanted. However, that was under the situation where there were no powerhouses to stop them. In the blue sky and white clouds, the 5 powerhouses who escaped met on the way. They stopped in the air and looked back with lingering fear. Li Tian touched the scars on the great lightsaber and said painfully, "The people of the immortal world and netherworld must have taken the wrong medicine. When did they become so united? They actually gathered hundreds of millions of people to fight against our demonic army." The sinister-looking Blood Shadow also took a deep breath and shook his head repeatedly. "This is unprecedented. Even when we trampled them under our feet back then, there wasn't such a big rebound. It's so scary to be so united." Bai Chi and Kinta secretly glanced at each other. The people of the demon world might not know, but the two of them had stayed in the immortal world and netherworld for such a long time, so they could understand the feelings of the people of these 2 worlds. When the demonic path dominated the 3 worlds, they treated the people of the 3 worlds as slaves to be killed and humiliated at will. No one wanted to live like that again, so they naturally joined forces to resist. To put it bluntly, if the demon world was still sealed, even if Bai Chi and Kinta were still in charge of the immortal world and netherworld, it was impossible to gather hundreds of millions of people in a short period of time. It was easier said than done to gather hundreds of millions of people together. But when the demon world reopened, it was different because it had seriously harmed the interests of everyone in the immortal world and netherworld. Everyone had the same goal. As long as someone made a call, it was very easy to gather a large number of people. At the very least, they would gather together to symbolically resist. The more people there were, the more bolder they would be. What kind of person is that woman called Hei Chi? She actually has such a big rallying power. She can gather so many people from the netherworld at once. It's simply inconceivable. Black Knight Great Demon King frowned and asked. The other two also looked at Kinta and Bai Chi with inquisitive eyes. Hearing this, Kinta sneered and looked at Bai Chi sarcastically. It's not anyone else, it's the concubine under his crotch. In the end, he raised a tiger and brought disaster to himself. What kind of rallying power does that bitch have? Bai Chi glared at Kinta, then explained to the others why the immortal world and netherworld were so united. So that's how it is. Li Tian and the others immediately understood after listening to the explanation. Blood Shadow narrowed his eyes and said, so what if there are many people? The 5 of us will take a detour to avoid them and quickly enter the netherworld and open the passage between the 2 worlds. They won't be able to catch up to us. That won't do. Once they are fully prepared and lie in ambush near the passage, who has the confidence to escape from the joint forces of so many people again? Everyone saw Nightmare's death. Kinta immediately rejected this plan. He didn't want to take that risk again. The others also looked at each other and felt that it was a little too dangerous. Kinta then said, the netherworld's territory is vast. There are more than 100 billion cultivators under the various tyrants. The 300 million people that hate Chi Broad is just a hair from 9 oxen. If so many people join forces to resist the demon world's army, even if we can break into the netherworld, with such a big disturbance and the countless formations they have set at the entrance of the netherworld and demon world, I'm afraid we won't be able to open the passage smoothly. Also, don't forget that Wu Feng might have the support of a group of old fellows from the netherworld god palace. The beautiful Black Knight Great Demon King's face suddenly turned cold. She stared at Kinta and shouted, since there is such a big obstacle, why didn't you report to the Demon King earlier? You caused us to lose hundreds of thousands of Demon World's army. What are you two planning? Just like you, we didn't expect the netherworld and immortal world to be so united to resist. After all, Kinta had just returned. It wasn't good for him to refute. He could only smile helplessly and said, I didn't even dream of it. Enough. Chapter 1157. In the demon palace of the demon world, Eunuch Li quickly gave a detailed report of the bad news. Standing in the middle of the palace in a scarlet cloak, the demon world of 3 knights closed his eyes and listened to Eunuch Li's report. Yan Zhuixing, who was following behind Demon Lord 3 Knights, was secretly alarmed when he heard this. The expedition army of the demonic world had actually been besieged by more than 300 million soldiers from the immortal and netherworld realms. They had suffered a crushing defeat, and even the Nightmare Demon King had died in battle, and had been instantly killed. What was even scarier was that there were more than 100 billion cultivators in the netherworld, and that didn't include the large aquatic race in the river Styx and the experts in the netherworld god palace. If so many people united to fight against the demon world's army, Yan Zhuixing couldn't help but wonder if Demon Lord 3 Knights could really lead the demonic path to unify the 3 realms. Nightmare Demon died in battle. Demon Lord 3 Knights' scarlet cape suddenly fluttered, and he slowly opened his eyes. He sneered. A bunch of self-proclaimed righteous people, but the things they do in the dark are worse than my demonic path. It's just that we do it in the open, but they only dare to do it in the dark. Can they really be so united? They're just resisting out of fear. Threats and promises can easily resolve this. A bunch of selfish people. Human nature is easy to bully. Watch how I make them bow down to me. Eunuch Li bowed slightly. Demon Lord. Li Tian and the others know they've messed up Demon Lord's plan. Please punish them. Humph. These guys. Forget it. They can't be blamed. Even I didn't expect this to happen. Demon Lord 3 Knights' voice stirred up the blood clouds above the demon palace again. He gave a grand order. Pass down my decree. Order the armies that have already entered the immortal world to stop their original plans and return to defend the passageway between the netherworld and immortal world. Order the 12 demon kings that have gathered in front of the passageway between the netherworld and demonic world to quickly return and enter the immortal world through the passageway. Order everyone in the devil world to be on standby. Great Demon King, quickly gather 10 million elite troops from all over the devil world and march to the immortal world as quickly as possible. Order the 72 commanders of the demon palace to lead the main army to defend the demon world. Kill anyone who tries to cause trouble. I want to personally lead 10 million troops to conquer the immortal world and meet the immortal underworld demon-slaying alliance. I want to see who can stop me. Yes. Eunuch Li quickly accepted the order and left to convey the message. On the other hand, Yan Zhuixing, who was behind Demon King 3 Knights, was filled with excitement. He finally had the chance to settle the score with Yu Qianqiu. Due to the invasion of the demonic path, the business of the Four Links Chamber of Commerce had come to a complete halt. Now, no one was in the mood to do business. In the courtyard, Nan Tianlong and Tao Zhong stood side by side. From time to time, they would look at the Heartless Palace's disciples who were guarding the perimeter motionlessly. From time to time, they would look in the direction of the inner courtyard, which was filled with pink roses. The inner courtyard was filled with all kinds of flowers. They had all been personally planted by Mu Tianjiao before she left this place to marry Wu Xiong. When she had planted them, they had only been seedlings, but now they were already luxuriant and full of flowers. When she came back, she saw that the flowers in the courtyard had been carefully taken care of. She couldn't help but feel a little surprised. At first, she thought that her father had ordered someone to do it, but when she asked, she found out that it was Tao Zhong who had taken care of it. Mu Tianjiao, who had nothing to do, was squatting in a newly planted flower bed by the wall and pulling out weeds. Her slender fingers carefully pulled out the weeds growing in the gaps between the seedlings. Wu Xiong stood behind her with his hands behind his back. Seeing her seriously pulling out the weeds, he couldn't help but sigh. Do you really need to do these chores yourself? Just leave it to the servants. He hadn't returned to the netherworld with Madame Blackpool. Instead, he had come here halfway. Since the Four Links Chamber of Commerce doesn't have any business to take care of right now, I'm just idling around. I'll just entertain myself. Mu Tianjiao squatted there and didn't look back as she spoke. Wu Xiong's gaze landed on his beloved wife's full buttocks, and his lower abdomen couldn't help but heat up. He had always been infatuated with this woman's unique charm when she was receiving pleasure. Her figure was exquisite, but it didn't lose its fullness. He took a deep breath and calmly asked, "Why don't you come with me? This is the Mu family's property. The Mu family has no children, and now that father is gone, I naturally have to protect it. Besides, I'm used to the bright and beautiful sunlight. I really don't like the pitch-black netherworld. I've been afraid of the dark since I was young." Mu Tianjiao stood up with the weeds in her hands, walked to the side, and threw them into the wicker basket. She patted the dirt off her hands and smiled faintly at Wu Xiong. "Didn't you say that the immortal netherworld evil-killing alliance has already found a way to defeat the demon realm's invasion? If that's the case, why are you in such a hurry to let me leave?" Wu Xiong frowned. "Even so, the immortal realm will become a battlefield sooner or later. I really can't feel at ease with you here. Besides, everyone knows you're my wife. What if the demon realm kidnaps you and uses you to threaten me? What do you want me to do? Is it really safe to go to the netherworld?" Mu Tianjiao lowered her head and scraped the dirt off her fingers. She shook her head slightly. "I don't think that the Demon King 3 Knights, who shook the 3 realms back then, is so easy to deal with. I'm afraid that even if I go to the netherworld, I won't be able to avoid the same fate. If that's the case, what difference does it make a day earlier or a day later?" She paused and looked around with deep affection. "This is my home. I really don't want to leave here. Don't worry, I won't let myself fall into the hands of the demon realm and be used by them to threaten you. The unspoken meaning of her last words was, when the time comes, I'd rather die than submit. I won't make things difficult for you. You. Wu Xiong couldn't help but feel a trace of anger, but he suppressed it in the end. He moved closer to his wife and whispered, there are some things I won't hide from you. If we still can't resist the demon realm's army in the netherworld, we still have a way out. Father has some connections in the netherworld divine palace. We can go there. Even Demon King 3 Knights wouldn't dare to trespass there. As he spoke, he smelled Mu Tianzhao's body fragrance and couldn't help but wrap his arms around her waist. His hands began to fondle her body passionately. After rubbing for a while, he actually began to undress her clothes in broad daylight. He reached his hand into her chest and whispered in her ear, come with me. You and I can be entwined for a lifetime. Mu Tianzhao's expression didn't change. She allowed his hands to caress her chest. Suddenly, she asked indifferently, if my father didn't have anyone supporting him, even if he had some connections under your care, he wouldn't have the ability to go to the netherworld to cause trouble for you, Qianqiu. Were you the one who added fuel to the fire behind the scenes? Since you have such great power in the netherworld, why couldn't you protect my father? Although it was a question of suspicion, this analysis undoubtedly pointed out that those who dared to help Mu Bing cause trouble in the netherworld wouldn't dare to act recklessly without absolute certainty. Even the immortal Emperor Jin Tai wouldn't dare to act recklessly in the territory of the Emperor of the Underworld, Bai Qi. You have such great power, yet you couldn't protect Mu Bing. This means that you didn't do your best, or perhaps you did it on purpose. What are your intentions? Wu Xiong's hand, which was grabbing the softness, suddenly froze. Then, he slowly withdrew his hand and said in a low voice, what nonsense are you talking about? Do you think I want to see something happen to your father? Mu Tianzhao, who had her back to him, bit her lip and said, go. I won't go to the netherworld with you. The last sentence slowly came out of her mouth, word by word. Wu Xiong's expression suddenly became uncertain. No one knew what he was thinking. Finally, he snorted coldly, turned around, and strode away. Tears fell from Mu Tianzhao's eyes. She bit her lip and silently tidied up her clothes that had been messed up just now. At the entrance of the immortal world to the demon world, the 12 demon kings were discussing the news that Demon King 3 Knights was about to lead an army of 10 million. Bai Qi and Jin Tai were also at the side, but it seemed that no one paid attention to them. Originally, there were a total of 13 demon kings who came to the immortal world. Unfortunately, Nightmare had died in battle, and the other 3 were like Bai Qi and Jin Tai, generals without an army. At this time, the demon world's army of nearly 900,000 was scattered within a radius of 100 miles, waiting for the enemy. As the spies in the distance continuously sent back news that the immortal underworld army was gradually approaching, the demon kings knew that Wang Qing and his son had been dragged down by the huge army. Otherwise, with their cultivation, they would have arrived long ago. Everyone would occasionally look at the demon world's entrance. Since the Demon King didn't want them to take the initiative to attack and instead wanted them to stay here and wait for orders, it meant that the Demon King would arrive as soon as possible. With the Demon King's speed, he should have arrived long ago, so why was he still here? At this moment, a figure shot out from the spinning black light. The newcomer had tied his hair up and wore a crown. He wore a tight-fitting black armor, and his body was well built. Under his thick eyebrows, his tiger-like eyes scanned the surroundings, and a disdainful aura couldn't be concealed. He casually shook off the scarlet cloak behind him and walked out of the cave with a majestic gait. It was the awe-inspiring Demon King 3 Knights. The 12 Demon Kings, along with Jin Tai and Bai Qi, were slightly shocked. They quickly split into 2 sides, each with 7 people, and knelt down on one knee. Greetings, Demon King. The crowd in the surroundings was alarmed, and they all knelt down on one knee. Greetings, Demon King. Their voices reverberated through the heaven and earth. Demon King 3 Knights calmly walked to the center of the 14 people on either side of him before stopping. His nose, which was as if he was on tenterhooks, let out a soft hum. Only then did the 14 people cautiously stand up, their gazes filled with respect. Everyone else also stood up and quickly averted their gazes, not daring to look directly at this supreme demon king. Immediately after, a man in white clothes and a white hat flashed out from the demon world's passage, and lightly stood behind the demon king. The 14 experts all cupped their hands and respectfully called out, "Uniquely." The reason why everyone called him uniquely was not because he was a eunuch, but because he was the servant of the demon god Yi Gang when he first appeared. He was loyal and devoted to the Night Clan. After the demon god, he helped 3 demon monarchs to successfully ascend to the throne. His cultivation and abilities were unfathomable. No one present had ever seen him make a move, and he rarely made a move. However, everyone knew that once he made a move, no one would be able to leave alive. Thus, no one knew what abilities he had. Ever since they came into contact with him, they had always respectfully called him uniquely. As for what his actual name was, none of the experts present knew. He gave off a very mysterious feeling. However, this didn't hinder everyone's respect for him, because every word that came out of his mouth represented the meaning of the previous demon kings. He was deeply trusted and valued by the previous demon kings. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.